there's a really interesting clip on CNN that I want to play with Carl Bernstein, journalist and author. They ask him, why do you think the Republican Party is staying so silent? Now, I love questions like this. We typically bring people on for interviews and everything else. And his answer is good. But his answer, I think, leaves out something that is also important, that explains the behavior, even if it doesn't necessarily justify the behavior. At the very least, you can find this kind of balance within the political space where one feeds into the other. But in this very specific instance, they ask him very bluntly, why do you believe the Republicans are quiet? The president of the United States has just lost the race. And instead of conceding like every other president has, he challenges the integrity of our electoral system itself. Something that, by the way, goes, without any sort of inspection. Like, think back over the previous elections. You may have somebody count a vote total, but for all intents and purposes, the media and the political space treats the elections as sacred. Even so much so that all of the money you have to put in just to do recounts and whatnot. But Trump lost. Unless something magnificent and just, like out of the blue, like aliens land on the White House, Trump has lost. But Donald Trump doesn't want to concede. The question becomes, what do other Republicans think? He doesn't seem to have the institutional might in order to kind of make this work. So he's at home on Twitter with his lawyers pumping out one conspiracy theory after the next. Hugo Chavez's body, the ghost of Fidel Castro, the CIA, so it can help the communists get a Dominion voting system so they can work with Joe Biden to steal the election. I mean, it's utterly lunacy. But those are the lawyers that Donald Trump have arguing his case in the public and in the courts. Where are the other Republicans is the question. Why are they silent? Are there Republicans out there with a point of view? I'm going to show you Chris Christie in the next video, because Chris Christie is very straightforward. And it's actually pretty fascinating to hear Christie do this, seeing as he was thick as thieves with Donald Trump when Trump first took office, given it a certain degree of gravity that Chris Christie is actually calling this stuff a clown show. But let's go to Bernstein. He's going to answer the question, why do you think these Republicans are being silent? And I'm going to let you hear his answer, but his answer, like I said, leaves something out. But let's talk about it. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you the opportunity for allowing me to do it. Donald Trump has lost this race. And whether he concedes or not, I strongly suspect, at worst, he will be escorted out, dragged away by Secret Service, with Joe Biden going in office. What I suspect is going to happen, he's just going to refuse to concede, but he will leave. This, in and of itself, will pretty much damage Biden's presidency from the standpoint of a legitimacy standpoint. Even if people don't necessarily do anything about it, it's still this taint that Biden didn't necessarily win on his own steam. He was cheated, just like Trump didn't win on his own steam. He got help with the Russians. Yes, the motif is the same in 2016 and this election, when both Trump using his own version of Russiagate to delegitimize Biden, with Democrats using the actual Russiagate to delegitimize Trump's. Let's hear Bernstein.
First, he just said what every Republican member of the Senate of the United States should have been saying weeks ago. He did and said what a patriot would do and what our senators, the Republicans in the U.S. Senate, by and large, almost all of them, have failed to do. Look, let's take a step back here and see what we're talking about. We are witnessing the mad king in the final days of his reign, willing to scorch the earth of his country and bring down the whole system, to undermine our whole democracy, strip it of its legitimacy, and poison the confidence of our people in our institutions and the Constitution for Donald Trump's own petulant, selfish, rabid ends.
Yeah, but why? Why? Sometimes the why matters, right? I mean, you can make a case that says, no, I just want to focus on this very specific case and I only want to talk about this very specific thing and I don't want to add any other context from that. But that's not the way reality works. These things are kind of interlinked. Whether Donald Trump was going to concede or not, if what happened to him didn't happen, I don't know. That's counterfactual, right? What I do know is that his legitimacy as president was challenged in a very similar way that you are talking about right now that he's doing. Is it possible, to any degree that's possible, that Donald Trump is gaining revenge on a political instrument that he believes stripped him of a certain degree of legitimacy by using the conspiracy theory of Trump and Russia? I think that's more right. Now, Bernstein is not going to say that because Bernstein doesn't particularly care about that. Neither does CNN. And whether that's true or not, it's belied by the fact that it's still somewhat of a disastrous outcome if you get large numbers of people believing that this guy didn't win. Who's sovereign at that point? Democrats should have thought about that before instituting Russiagate. Here's one other point that he makes. He begins to out Republicans that disdain Trump. He called it, quote unquote, contempt for Donald Trump. Now, you've heard me say on more than one occasion for months that I don't believe for a moment that Trump has the Senate. When Donald Trump needs to get his bill passed, who can Donald Trump go to in the Senate that's going to make that work? Mitch McConnell is not going to bring the bill up for $1.8 trillion. So there was no way that Donald Trump was going to be able to get anything from the standpoint of stimulus before that election. They were trying to hit him in the knees. I guess the point I'm saying here is he's not their guy. Joe Biden is more of their guy than Donald Trump would ever be. So many of those people are perfectly fine with Joe Biden being in the presidency with Democrats taking the House as long as they can hold on to the Senate. They're okay with Trump going. They're going to get what they want through Biden anyway. And frankly, as he said, they disdain him. The interesting question, though, is, well, wait a minute. If they disdain him so much, why is just Mitt Romney, Toomey and Christie the only ones saying something? That's the interesting question. Let's hear the list, and then I want to get to why it's only a very few people saying something, even though he's given like 20 names that pretty much hate Donald Trump's guts.
Legislators come to the White House so he can convince them to overturn the results of the election.
Let me name, say, 15 or so Republican senators. And what I'm doing is not violating a journalistic principle because they've told me what I'm about to say. But for 2 or 3 years, I've talked to members of staffs of the senators, members of committees, staff people, aides, assistants, people who have worked for these people. Let's look at 15 of these Republican senators who really disdain and even despise Donald Trump, have said so to each other. Let's talk about Rob Portman, Lamar Alexander, Ben Sasse, Roy Blunt, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, John Cornyn, John Thune, Mitt Romney, we know, Mike Braun, Todd Young, Tim Scott, Marco Rubio, Chuck Grassley, Richard Burr, and there are others. Many, if not most, of these individuals, from what I have been told, were happy to see Donald Trump defeated in this election as long as the Senate could be controlled by the Republicans.
As long as the Senate is going to be controlled by the Republicans, no issue. Donald Trump goes, they get back to what they consider to be normal politics. The problem for them is, I don't think you can get back to normal politics. The very fact that many of these people feel that they're silenced. I mean, let's see, there are 20-something names. Do I have the list? I think I have the list up. Yeah, 21 senators who privately expressed their disdain for Trump. Portman, Alexander, Sasse, Blunt, Collins, Murkowski, Cornyn, Thune, Romney, Braun, Young, Tim Scott, Rick Scott, Rubio, Grassley, Burr, Toomey, McSally, Morin, Roberts, Shelby. That's a lot of people who don't like Trump. That's a lot of people. Now, those people will never say anything. And those people will stay quiet. They may point. They may whisper. They may call each other and call Trump very bad names. They may greatly dislike him. But if they ever see him, they're going to shake his hand. They're going to say, hello, Mr. President, etc. They're going to go about their business. Why? How could they hate him so much if he's right and yet don't say anything? Power. It's an issue of power. Donald Trump was able to put 10 million votes on top of what he did in the previous election. And honestly, if they didn't have mail-in ballots, I have a hard time believing Biden wins this race, despite all of the deaths and everything else that's on Trump's back. I mean, it seems that he was able to increase his numbers among blacks, Asians, blacks, blacks, Hispanics. I mean, 10.1 million more votes is utterly astonishing. I guess my point is, he didn't diminish. He exceeded expectations. And exceeding expectations and having a lot of people that rabidly love the guy. If you are one of these Republicans, what do you do knowing that? Meaning, do you really want to alienate aspects of Donald Trump's base when those base have to vote or will vote for Republicans? And the last thing you want is that base hating your guts, or that base, and a lot of them, getting this feeling that you weren't necessarily loyal or you were openly hostile to the President of the United States as he valiantly fought back against cheating, the ubiquitous fraud in the United States. And you, classical Republicans, tried to go after him. I'm trying to make the point to you that the reason they stay out of it, the reason they don't say anything, the reason they keep their mouth shut, is because it's a no-win situation for them. Politically, it's disadvantageous for them to come out and say anything negative against Trump, especially if it will be held against them in their next election. They will be there in 2 years. They will be there in 4 years. They will be there in another 4 years, potentially. And the last thing they want is for it to be injured because the public gets a perspective that they weren't in it for Trump, or at the very least, they were hostile. Politics demands complicity in this, or they shut up. Now, there are certain people who aren't beholden to people of the base. Romney, for example. Christie, for example. And many of those people who did the politics, who was in government, who was in office for all of this time, that system is a system to which they operate in. And so you can understand them having, being queasy at Trump basically attacking the system to which they operate. If this implodes, there is no backup. He's not wrong. The only issue here is, from a political standpoint, it's disadvantageous for any of the Republicans to come out, especially if those Republicans are going to be running in races. And those races are going to require Republicans to vote for them, either in primaries and especially in the general. The last thing you want is a Republican that can take it or leave it. And they decide to leave it in large measure because they felt you were disloyal to Donald Trump. And by the way, this also means that when Donald Trump leaves the political space, he will still be a political juggernaut. And whether that's giving his blessing or starting a media empire or whatever else, he will still be there and he will be a force. Meaning, just because you got rid of him doesn't mean he's going anywhere, especially being able to pull 10.1 million more votes. I'm going to leave it here. I mean, Bernstein, look, I think Bernstein's analysis was right. I just think there's a little bit more context to get into why Trump did it. Not so much to excuse the behavior, but definitely to understand the behavior in the context of a tit for tat that escalates. Like, share, and of course, subscribe. Guys, also make sure you're subscribed. I want to make sure that people were telling me that some of them were being unsubscribed. So definitely make sure you hit the like button. Definitely make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you're still there. And I do videos all the time. So I'll see you guys shortly. Thanks all.